Today we solve the ultimate writer's challenge: how to express the inexpressible. Have you ever hyped up an experience to a friend, one that was central to your life? You feel the excitement, but you're grasping for words, and in the end you just give up and say, words cannot describe. You see, the greater the experience, the more we want to do it justice, but the harder this becomes. As writers, this is our ultimate vocation. That can put on a little bit of pressure, but don't worry, I've got some ideas. 5, in fact, that I will unveil over the course of 2 videos. Let's get into it. First, we're going to give a makeover to the old favorite from high school English class, the metaphor. You have to relate your experience to something the other person would know. The very act of doing it enlarges the experience beyond itself. It seems to take on a principle that is universal, that goes beyond particular circumstances. In this spirit, let me give you a metaphor to describe all communication through writing fiction. Here we go. It operates just like the electricity grid. Now bear with me. At the start, the power plant generates the electricity, i.e. life gives you a feeling. Second, the electricity is transmitted to the home. Words are your cables, and you try to lose the least power possible during the transmission. Finally, the home receives and uses the electricity. The reader takes the emotion from your words and invests that in their own life. So there's a metaphor you weren't expecting. When you feel something strongly, it opens up your imagination. It gives your mind the charge to make great leaps between things that were seemingly unconnected. Let's go for Shakespeare. Romeo and Juliet. 'Tis the east, and Juliet is the sun. Juliet takes on the physical, but also the existential characteristics of the sun. This is quite incredible for a person to adopt, but if you look at it literally, for Romeo now, his world does revolve around Juliet. The idea was extended beautifully in an opera written by Gounod. There's one song after the balcony scene. Juliet and Romeo have arranged to meet in the morning. Romeo is watching for the dawn, waiting for the sun to rise, and the song plays so cleverly with this metaphor. The notes get higher and higher, indicating the sun that is on the rise. They also get louder, like he's trying to push the sun up with his voice. And of course, if Juliet is the sun, when the sun rises, that is when she wakes up, and Romeo gets to see her again after the balcony scene. I highly recommend having a listen, even if you're not naturally a fan of opera. I put a link in the description to my favorite rendition from Il Grande Corelli, 1967 Met Opera. He's probably like in his 50s even by this point, so very middle-aged and very masculine Romeo, but it's really wonderful how he sings it. So a metaphor is my first tip for describing the indescribable. They are both highly imaginative and highly literal. Nothing has the same freedom and precision as a metaphor. If you like logic mixed with spontaneity, this is the one for you. My second advice is to forget thoughts and get physical. The first element of this is to focus on physical language. How to describe a situation where you're stuck and you have no means of getting out. Up shit creek without a paddle. If you imagine it, this phrase gives you the physical sensation of being carried along by water against your will with no way of counteracting it. The second one, I had my heart in my mouth. Imagine that literally. What would that feel like? Presumably, you can't breathe and your heart has stopped beating. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should throw these phrases into your fiction, but they are simple examples that convey this crucial point. Imagine literally means turn it into an image, something you could see. Now, this is a counterintuitive move. People would assume that you cannot properly convey intangible things in tangible ways. You would lose their essence, but actually the opposite is true. You need to bring the abstract concepts down to earth. And bonus points if you noticed another metaphor. The second element is to physically move. A good idea should make you stand up out of your chair. Nietzsche used to do all his best brainstorming out hiking in the hills, and little Richard would often play the piano standing up because of the excess of energy in his body. You want to feel that sensation so you can transmit that same energy to the reader. The best way of doing this is physical movement. There you have two foundations, metaphor and physical description. They put us well on our way to making words as fresh as experience itself. But the job is not complete. Subscribe and join me next week for part 2. See you there.